Hello? Does this thing work? This is the Peak Boredom Podcast.
1, 2, 3.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Peak Boredom Podcast. We're your hosts, Michelle and Mars. And today we have a special friend with us, Alexa.
Hello. Welcome, Alexa. Do you want to
Hi, thank
introduce
you.
yourself a bit?
I'm Alexa. What else? What else do I say? I'm a student in London. I study fashion psychology, and on my free time, I also model.
Cool. Do you want to tell us? You said it's a funny story, so do you want to tell us how you got into modeling?
It was on accident. It genuinely was. It wasn't like someone caught me on the street as well. It was on accident. I was in 10th grade, and I wanted a part-time job, and so I emailed this agency in I think at that time they're pretty well known. So I was like, I'm never gonna get it, and so I emailed them. I was like, hey, here's me, here's my measurements, here's my picture, and they're like, we want to meet you, and then they signed me, and I was like, how did this happen?
Well,
So basically,
Yeah.
the internet.
Yes, the internet. And so I've been modeling since then.
so how do models book jobs exactly?
So we have an agent. Well, most of us have an agent. And so you go to an agency and then they sign you. So then legally they represent you. So any jobs in terms of modeling, commercial, film, acting, and all that stuff have to go through your agency. And then, so if a client, let's say they need a model to do a job, they need a model to star in a film, or they need a model to do a commercial job, they'll go to the agency and they'll be like, hey, we need a girl or a guy, or something else. we need someone to come, and this is the description that we need. And then the agency will send the girls that fit the description to the client, and then the client will choose normally. So yeah. Or you
Here's a
have
weird
castings as well.
Casting
Here's
like in movies? Like, do they like?
Yeah. So they'll send you like, hey, we have a casting inquiry, so you have to go to this place, and then they'll cast you.
Well, you're not gonna say lines, right? That's not how it works.
No. So the casting is very different. You go in somewhere. It's funny because it's just sort of this unspoken rule. When you go to a casting, you're supposed to wear all black. So every girl comes in like all black, and it's just a bunch of girls in all black with like tight-fitting clothing, just sitting there waiting. And then they'll call you up, they'll give you a board with your name and your agency, and then they'll just take pictures of you, and that's it.
Okay, so no lines.
Nope. Unless it's for a film, and then they'll be like, can you say this? It's usually just like,
Easy cover girl.
yeah, it's like smile, or I did a casting for a toothpaste commercial, and they were like they told me, they're like, here, pretend you have a toothpaste and then smile and do this. That was it.
Well, how hard is it to book jobs as a freelancer, so without an agency?
Significantly harder. You have I think in the UK, I know for the UK you have websites that you can sign up to, like Star Now or Model Management, and then you just put your profile up there, and then there's these job advertisements, and then it's basically everything's online. So you cast, and then you'll send whatever details you have on your account, and then if you get booked, they'll contact you, and yeah, that's pretty much what you do when you're freelance. You have to look for the jobs don't come to you.
And how much say do models have on like the clients that they get?
Legally a lot, but
Oh no.
I don't know. Like you feel like you can't say no, especially if you're starting out, because you want to build your portfolio, you want to build your book, you want to show future clients what you've done in the past. And so I mean, there are some models that are more conservative. For example, they don't want to shoot lingerie or bikini or like swimsuit, and you can say no if that's based on your principles and morals. But if, for example, like you just don't feel like it, you kind of feel obliged. Like there's this unspoken energy that's like saying like, here's a job, say yes. But legally, we can't say no to any job we want to.
And what is the role of social media in it? Because I think I was watching the casting for Victoria's Secret some time ago, and they talked about like how models have to have a following of some sort in order to start out.
I did not know that. But well, if you're starting off as a model, especially if you're a fashion model, you don't really need a following. Like because a lot of the times, like let's say you're a model for Gucci, people don't really like look for you unless you're like Kendall Jenner or like something like that, and they don't normally like tag you as well. Sometimes they do, not all the time. And so you don't really need to have a following on your Instagram. Sometimes it helps to have a following or to have a good presence on social media. Obviously, like Instagram celebrities and like Instagram models are getting jobs that are traditionally fashion model jobs, and so it helps. But for a lot of cases, it doesn't really matter.
I've got a weird question.
Yeah.
Oh no. I guess weird questions.
Do animals have agencies? Like,
I feel like they do. I genuinely feel like they do. I don't know.
I think so.
I was watching New Girl the other day, and one of the character is an animal agent. So that I was like, maybe it exists.
I think they do because, like, you know how they get credited in like movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What? That's a job, Inga.
It is.
not like trained animals. They just bring on trained animals, but like animal models, like those like whenever they bring in exotic animals onto a shoot.
I'm pretty sure like they either contact a trainer or maybe an agent. I don't know. I've never worked with animals before. On my bucket list.
I guess going from there, since you've been like modeling, since you've been modeling in like Indonesia and the UK, what is the difference between the fashion industry in those? Now you're.
I think with Indonesia, because I feel it like Indonesia's fashion industry isn't as
like
big as the one.
Asia in general.
I think Asia in general is like very, very hard to say, because I know in China it's very intense. Like you have girls go in for a commercial shoot and then they have to wear like 80 clothes in a day and they get treated kind of badly. This is from like another model. Like she was telling me all that stuff from when she was working in China. So I know that's what's happening in East Asia, but I think in Indonesia it's very different because our industry is just starting out, or it seems like it's just starting out and starting to like kind of grow into this new generation type of thing. And so it's very different. It's very much, I don't want to say less professional, because it is professional, but the industry is very tight-knit. So you know everyone. You know one person, and then you end up knowing a lot of people within that industry. They become your friends. They become the people you hang out with. Everyone knows everyone. In London, because it's so big, it's so international, it becomes very much so like a business. And so you meet someone, you go. It's very rare you end up meeting the same people again, like especially when you're working. Whereas in Indo, like I tend to work with the same people like 5 to 10 times in the year.
But does that make it hard for them to expand then, if you're just working with the same people over and over again?
No, because in Indo is so creative. Like, especially from my experience, like Indonesians are very, very creative. Even the ones here, like I've worked with Indonesians here as well, and the ideas, the concepts, like I don't know where they got them from. Like it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And yeah, it's very much so. Like I think Indo's focus right now is very much so on design, high fashion, editorials. And so when you're in Indo, you get booked for a lot of those jobs, and the pictures that come out of it is less so commercial. Whereas in London, it is there's a massive market for commercial modeling. So like ASOS, Boohoo, like New Looks, Topshop, stuff like that. Like there's a big market for that here. And so jobs tend to be more commercial, more like that kind of stuff where you're just smiling and then you just constantly changing clothes and showcasing the clothes, as opposed to art, concept, creativity. Like there isn't much of that here. It's very hard to get jobs like that here.
So is there more like collaboration between models and the fashion industry, like currently in Indonesia? Is what you're saying?
Less so collaborations. I think there's a lot of test shoots, but I think people, there's a massive emphasis on like magazines. Like from my experience, like, oh, this magazine, that magazine. And so even for like campaign, like commercial shoots, like it's more, there's more thought that gets put into it. I've done like a Ramadan edition like clothing line thing.
Oh,
and
cute.
yeah, and it was the thought that comes into it is so much more than the thought that comes into like an ASOS shoot, because like they had a set designer, like the whole set was designed properly, like there's flowers everywhere, and like it's less rigid, I guess. It's more free flow, going with the flow, and like going with whatever the creative mind takes you, from my experience. So yeah,
I guess that could be like because like Indonesia or like our culture hasn't been, like it hasn't been outside of our culture. So
yeah,
I think even if the movie industry, they're just starting to like show other cultures.
yeah.
That's just very new right now.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, because it's so new, all the advances in the industry that has been or is being made here, such as the inclusion of curve models and like diversity, all that stuff, is sort of not happening back home. So like currently there's this massive conversation on like eating disorders and like a lot of like well-being of models here, which is what I want to focus on in my career. And it's so hard to get that conversation going back home, because it's sort of thought of as a necessity. Like you have to look a certain way, you have to lose weight, you have to do this, because that's how it works. It's very, 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 very traditional, especially if you want to go into like high fashion in Indo, as opposed to here where it's like it's so much more inclusive. Like you have girls that are not stereotypically like model height that are assigned in agencies and doing like a lot of work for Urban Outfitters or like Boohoo or ASOS again. Stuff like that.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, just it comes up a lot. So,
Great. And you're really passionate about fashion psychology, but I don't think people know exactly what fashion psychology is. So can you tell us more about that?
it is a very new division in research psychology. So there's a lot, like as I said, like there's a lot of stuff that's happening and like being brought up and talked about here in the UK especially, and I guess a lot of like Western and first world countries where it is more okay to talk about, like as I said, well-being, eating disorders and stuff like that. And like past the modeling side, like you have issues like sustainability and diversity, not only in representation but also in the people who make your clothes. And so we talk a lot in our class and in our course about the problems within the industry and how we can fix them, and we talk about how we can do research to help fix these problems. So like it's not just clothing, fashion, and like all the stuff that you think about when you think fashion. It's also about makeup and how makeup can make you feel better. All these research that's very limited is hoped, like we hope as from our, I don't know what I'm saying, but like basically what our lecturers are hoping for us to do is to create more research to help grow the industry into a better industry that supports sustainability, well-being, as well as diversity. Short and simple.
That's very interesting. But since it's such a new branch of psychology, and I feel like fashion in itself is a very specific and different industry compared to like literally any other industry, like even business psychology can be considered like closer to business and psychology than like fashion psychology. So do you feel like there may be a bit of a disconnect between the psychology community and the fashion psychology community?
Maybe. I've never sort of experienced that. My experience with that sort of disconnect is research, in like writing my own paper or like conducting my own research and stuff like that. Because when you're trying to find past research or like background research, like it is very, very hard to do that. Like you have to literally draw a non-existent line between point A and point B because it's very, very new. But it's funny you brought up business psychology because some parts of what we're doing is technically business psychology, such as consumer psychology, how people consume fashion, why people consume fashion, and how brands manipulate us to consume fashion. But we also yeah and so like in a sense it is business psychology applied into the fashion industry. But because the fashion industry is very different than any sort of business, any sort of businesses and industries out there, it becomes a very interesting subject to learn in psychology. Because like fashion is one of those things that is so ingrained in all of us that we don't realize that it is. Like for example, like just the clothes that we wear. Why do we wear them? What influenced us to wear it? Is it for us to fit into a certain cultural like norm, societal norm, and like, you know, all the other stuff, such as also like how stores manipulate us to buy clothes, like stuff like that. We don't consider that, or we don't like instinctively group that into fashion psychology, but it is. So yeah,
I see it kind of like
no, Mark's good.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I see it kind of like a step 3 of fashion. Like, you know, fashion used to be just about how pretty you look, but now we're thinking more about like how it like affects you as a person and why it's important to wear your culture. Or yeah, because like I see it in planning too, because planning used to be a very like white settler kind of like subject, and now we see a lot of like how can we move away from that, because there are things we can do that are more community based and community strong. Yeah, because we, as you know, planning wasn't, it just came to be what it is, but it's not really how it should be. I don't know, I'm still learning.
No, but it is basically like that, where we're trying to, like for example, we have there are charities here that work with like cancer patients. I don't want to be wrong about this, but it works with like patients, and they use makeup to make them feel better. And so that aspect of how can aspects of the industry, such as makeup, clothing, how can that fit into positive psychology, which is, there's a massive emphasis on positive psychology in our course itself and sustainability. And so we're trying to step away from just like, oh, fashion is this thing that is so far-fetched, and it's this thing that everyone has a like this boxed idea of, and we're trying to branch that out and say, hey, fashion is actually in your everyday lives, and even though you're not interested in fashion, you are taking part in that industry when you're buying an eyeliner, or when you're going to get your hair bleached, or like stuff like that.
Wow. I was gonna ask, like, has studying consumer psychology somehow changed the way you shop now for clothing?
Oh yes. There's my course, I think in LCF especially, LCF London College of Fashion, for those of you who don't know, especially in LCF, there is a massive emphasis on sustainability. So how do we make the fashion industry more sustainable? Because like obviously we all know the industry is probably like the second biggest pollutant in the world. There is not just, it's horrible. Like fast fashion is horrible. This is something that I've just learned in the first year of uni, and now I feel very bad shopping at Primark and like H&M, because you end up learning about how horrible the system is. Sort of like, you buy these clothes, you buy them for cheap from like a fast fashion company, and we learn that like fast fashion is basically like anything that's any brand that produces 20 or more lines in a year, which is a lot. If you think about it, it's a lot. Like Gucci or something, whatever, they produce like what, 2 lines a year, autumn, winter, and summer, spring, compared to fast fashion that produces 20 lines. Can you imagine that? 20 lines, multiple amounts of clothing coming out constantly, and you can just imagine like how much waste comes out of that. And like if you're buying clothes as well from fast fashion, it's low quality. That's why it's so cheap. Most of them are made from like polyester, which is plastic, so if you throw that away, it won't degrade, it won't like become one with the earth again. And so it's just like studying this has made me like really rethink the way I purchase and like shop and consume like fashion, especially.
Yeah, and we should probably emphasize like that also includes the process of making the clothing, right? The amount of water it requires to dye clothing.
Yeah.
I did a bit of research as a research assistant once in a university about the effects of dye on basically like living organisms, and we found out like it fundamentally affects your development and how you grow.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. So there's a episode in Hassan Minaj Patriarch that talks about fast fashion. But basically, one of the things that really struck me was there was a video he put in where he was interviewing an Indonesian kind of like,
I think he was a mayor.
Mayor this mayor lives, or like the mayor looks at near that is a factory where they do fast fashion. So you can see like the sea or like the lake. It's really dirty, and because they do a lot of the coloring like factory based. So the thing about fast fashion is they do it so fast that they have so much waste that goes to like countries like our country, and then people near them are affected, and they actually like lose their sense of smell and touch. I can't remember what, but it literally affects them. And the mayor just like says, oh yeah, you know what, maybe they'll get X-Men,
Oh my gosh.
like X-Men powers. And then I just like, no.
Oh.
To give you a bit more detail, what the research in that episode was saying was that the dye from the contaminated river was giving kids kidney and liver problems.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
My research was I was analyzing the effects of both commercial and laboratory dyes on yeast. So it's hard for me to extrapolate, but it gives you a good idea. And I expected it to just kill the yeast like straight out. And so if you've ever seen a graph of how cells grow, so if you're growing yeast with nothing else, it should create what they call a sigmoidal curve, I think it's called. Yeah, it should form a sigmoidal curve. But once you add dyes, it starts slowing down in growth, and that shows you like there is something that's happening that's affecting the growth and the multiplication of the cells. And like the more powerful the dye, like the worse. Like some of them just straight out like it's no longer a curve, it's just like a really slow slope.
Because they take a lot of water to make that like color.
Not just that, but like the itself, like on top of that, like some dyes require something to fix them onto the cloth as well. Sometimes it requires extra metals and extra like byproducts, and that really contaminates rivers, and of course it kills the wildlife there, and like it affects the children who drink that water. So yeah, that's not.
Yeah, and you might argue that like just in that topic that you can donate your clothes. Like I have some.
Yeah, no.
Like, they don't use it anymore because it's not just it's bad, but because like after a while you can't really use it anymore. They just kind of throw it away, especially those donations you see that are like for charity and all that. They actually don't use in 90 or 95% of it because it's fast fashion, because like some people are like it's not good for their skin, I think, or it's just not usable anymore after a while.
It's just the material and quality of the product is significantly less than that of a very expensive brand. But like it starts making you wonder as well. Like if you're someone from a lower economical status, or if you're someone with no money, like a student like me, like you start to double take when you're trying to buy a sustainable brand and their sweatshirt is 150 pounds, and you're like, hold on, that's a lot of money. Like, where am I gonna get that money? That's, well, in Indo, that's what, like 3 juta for one sweater. And like we have this trend in the industry where you have to wear something new every day. Everyone thinks that it's something that you have to do. Like, you have to wear something new every day, or like your clothes have to always look really nice, or like blah blah blah. You can't just wear the same stuff every day. But like, why?
Yeah, no, you don't. Like that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
narrative.
Yeah, like part of something that fashion psychologists do is also trend forecasting. Yeah, so it's not like, oh, what's gonna be the new trend? Well, it kind of is. Like, you start analyzing past business behavior, consumer behavior in the industry, and then you predict what will come after. And so we learned that it's been predicted and forecasted that capsule wardrobes and like that the concept of capsule wardrobes and capsule clothing, where you buy just a few amount of clothing, not too much, just enough for you to be able to mix and match between the clothing so that you can always look different, new, presentable, and it's versatile, like very versatile pieces of clothing that you can wear a lot, and you don't need to throw it out. It's high quality, and just keep it. Like, you have basics basically. And so that's
I think
the
the
feature of
problem
fashion.
with, like fast fashion is that it is so mass produced. I'm not saying that, you know, a few fast fashion is fine, I guess, because not everyone has the luxury. Again, it's like with the talk about, you know, climate change and like the ones we did before. Not everyone has the luxury to buy, you know, more high expensive
clothing, yeah.
But there is a problem, and it is fine to buy fast fashion. It's just the amount you buy is a problem.
Yeah, it's
think.
like one of the solutions that we sort of like discussed is the prospect of, what if, you know, you don't have enough money, so you go to Primark because you really don't have money to buy clothes, and so you go to Primark and you buy like a t-shirt, and like your mindset shouldn't be, I'm gonna wear this t-shirt once and I'm gonna throw it away. Your mindset should be like, if you're thinking about it from a sustainable point of view, it's, you should buy this t-shirt and wear it till you can't wear it anymore. Like, even if it's broken, if you can fix it, if there's a stitch that's come off, or like, you know, it starts looking horrible on the bottom half, mend it, make it into something new. You can cut it off, make it into a crop top, sew it into something else, reuse that fabric so that you can continue using it until it genuinely cannot be used anymore.
Yeah, I had a friend who went to Primark and bought a shirt, and it was a super cheap shirt, and she never went to Primark ever again because she put that shirt in a washing machine and it shredded. So it was literally
wow.
It was a one-time use shirt for her.
Jeez. Oh my god.
Okay, watch what you buy, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about educating and making people more aware. Because, like, for example, the effects of dye that you just told me, I wasn't aware of that. But if more people were aware of that, then they would be like, oh, okay, maybe I'd reconsider buying something that causes harm to children like that in certain areas. And yeah, it's just about telling the world about it, making more people more aware of the bad effects of fast fashion and how you can solve the ever-growing problem of polluting the world through your clothes.
Well, the next question we have was, were there any reactions? What were the reactions that people had when you mentioned that you take fashion psychology? Because I know some people have a very like, they view models as kind of airheaded and there's not much in there, up there.
It's not just that. I was talking to my friend the other day. So he goes to LSE, and what uni you go to can make people like think how smart and how dumb you are. And so
Which is stupid. I mean, a lot of dumb people in good unis.
yes, exactly. And so my friend goes to LSE, so he gets the thing where he tells people he goes to LSE and everyone's like, oh, you're so smart. I get the opposite because I go to UAL. And so from people who go to like King's, LSE, UCL, which is a lot of like big universities and quote unquote smart universities in London, when I tell them I go to UAL, if they're not an art student, they'll go, oh, they'll like start turning their eye and then they'll ask, oh, what do you study? And I'll go, fashion psychology. Then they turn their interest back on you. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. And then they start to have their own idea of what it is. And their idea of what fashion psychology is, oh, so can you tell what I am and how, you know, my personality based on what I'm wearing? And I'm like, no, obviously not. Your clothing is your first line of communication. That is for sure. You can tell people something from what you wear. But I'm not gonna know if you like cats or dogs based on what you wear. Maybe if I can see cat hair on your like clothes, I know you have a cat. But like, it's ridiculous.
Wait, Mars, what was your first thought of what fashion psychology was when you heard it?
I thought it was more of a like you learning how people consume. Like it's a part of management, but it's also like, it's just management.
Yeah, like a lot of what we do is like a lot of our, I don't want to say graduates because our third year just graduated and they're the first bachelor's graduatee alumni. They're first alumni for our bachelor.
I'm like, what is she saying?
They're our first alumni for BSc in fashion psychology. And it's interesting because when people from the actual industry, like business industry, marketing, whatever, they come and see a discussion like of our cohorts and everything, they start getting really amazed because in our course itself, we are taught marketing, management, business, sustainability, as well as ethics and psychology research. And so it's sort of like very well-rounded. And so you finish our degree, like if you take fashion psychology, you finish the degree, you can literally go anywhere. If you want to do research, you can go, hey, I've done quantitative and qualitative. It's not just one. I didn't just focus on one, I focused on both. So like whatever research you need me to do, I can do it. And if you go to like management or marketing, you have that previous knowledge of management and marketing within the fashion industry. So you're basically competing with people from graduating with like a degree in fashion management or fashion marketing or like anything within the business world. Like we can compete with that because we have that knowledge as well.
Yeah, no, it sounds like when I was doing communication undergrad, it's actually like a lot of stuff. It's like human interaction, like human design, and it's also marketing a bit. It's a bit of art. Like it's kind of like you're kind of touching everything. That's what I thought fashion psychology was, but like more because in communication you focus on media and portrayal of media too, right? So I was thinking that fashion psychology is that, but more like fashion. So like the portrayal of fashion, how they market and consume, why that is problematic. Why you put me on spot like that?
Because I didn't have a very specific view on fashion psychology when I first heard it. Like it sounded like it encompasses quite a lot just by the word fashion psychology. So it literally could be anything from the behavior of people in the industry or the behavior of people towards the industry, or maybe like projections towards. For me, I felt like when I first heard it, I'm like, that's a really broad course and there's so many directions to go with it.
But that's the thing though, a lot of people, that's coming back to like what I said, how people sort of box fashion in this one little box and they don't like branch out or they don't think more of it. And it's like when I say fashion psychology, because they have this idea of what fashion is, just like this one thing. No, but because they think that fashion is just this one thing, when I say fashion psychology, they think it's such a niche little thing that you can't go anywhere from. But once you sort of like have a broader idea of what fashion is, all the different aspects that is considered fashion and within the fashion industry, you start to realize that this is actually a really, really big subject, and you can really do a lot of things with it.
You know what's interesting? I want to ask, like, obviously fashion affects the way models, interact with them. Like, now you learned a bit of fashion psychology, right? How do you see like models being affected with fashion? And like, the industry is very common to know that everyone has a lot of, eating disorder, and like there's a notion that you have to look a certain way that you already talked about. How now that you've studied this, how are you like, wow, this is like problematic?
It's funny because I wanted to do fashion psychology, and I want to forward my career in that area because I was a model. So working made me want to do this, because I've like, people have an idea of working in the industry, especially a model. People think you have this Kendall Jenner life, Gigi Hadid life, you're glamorous, you get to travel, you get to do this and that and this and that, and people don't really see how much work that goes into it. Like, you're like, at the end of it, I am standing in front of a camera, but there's so much work that goes behind it. Like, you have to learn this, you have to learn that, you have to like constantly be faced with rejection. And because of that, like, that's what made me want to do my course, because I realized how much like wrong there is in the industry, how much lack of attention to well-being is, like how much they're like, people just don't care. Like, the industry is a free-for-all. Like, people work without getting paid in whatever part of the industry is. Like, people work without getting paid, or people get really, really low wages. Like, we're not just talking about sweatshops as well. Like, we're talking about like makeup artists, stylists, like hairstylists, all that stuff. Models as well. Like, we don't get paid for some of our jobs. Like, we work for free. And so you're talking about like, oh, we need to pay sweatshop workers the right amount of wage. Hey, for models who are starting out, like, most of the time you're working and not getting paid. This idea of like, studying it just helps me figure out a way to fix it. Like, it leads me in the better direction and gives me a better idea of what I need to do so that I can hopefully help fix this problem, or bring this problem more to light, so that there's more regulations and like all that stuff to protect the people in the industry.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like when I was volunteering for like a festival, and like I was doing the back end stuff where people are faced with cameras and like they're like photographed. I just like think about how that affects you, because when I was there, I was like, I don't like cameras as much as the next person, but being photographed so much, I was just like, stop. And I was just like the girl holding like the name of the person that was supposed to step out there. I just think about like how that takes a lot of mental toll on you, especially like, yeah, you're talented at that, but that's still like a lot of work.
Yeah, it generally isn't a lot of work to be in front of a camera, but it does take a lot out of you, because you're constantly thinking, like, having to constantly think about how you look is very damaging. Like, that's like sometimes my friend, like, when I'm at home, I tend to not care about how I look, because when I'm at work, I care about how I look 24/7. And so I'm at home, and then like it gets to a point where my boyfriend's like, if I see you right now, I wouldn't think you're a model. And so I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, I really don't care, because at the end of the day, like, I have to worry so much about how I look when I'm at work that is very damaging. Like a lot of models tend to develop body dysmorphia or eating disorders just because they're always competing with other people. They're always competing for the same spot. Like, you go to a casting, as I said, when you're seeing like 50 other girls that look exactly like you, maybe skinnier, maybe taller, and you're like, wait, I need to be skinnier, I need to be taller, and you're constantly like, it's in your head, like that voice just constantly going loop and loop and loop and loop. It's just very damaging.
Like, I have to wonder, because like you're talking about like the flashes and like the camera's always in front of you. is there an effect? Is there like a correlation between maybe being a model and degrading eyesight?
I don't
Okay.
know. I wouldn't know about that. But I do know about this one time I went to set, and they were very, very they cared for me so much. It kind of caught me off guard because they're like, do you need water? Do you need food? Do you need anything? And I was like, okay, what's going on? So I asked them like, what's up? And they're like, oh yeah, we just wanted to make sure you're okay because the model that came before you fainted in front of the camera. Like,
Oh
full on. Yeah. And I guess it comes into play that sort of like, if you're always constantly caring, like thinking about how you look, and let's say you don't eat enough, you don't have a lot in you, and then you're in front of these hot lights. Like being in front of a camera in a shoot is hot. Like it's very, very hot. You have lights left, right, and center, and then you're constantly moving. Like that takes a lot out of you. And so this girl must have been really tired or something. She just full on collapsed.
no! Oh yeah, I remember when I was helping with a model shoot, I was like, do you need water? Do you need, I don't know, like, have you eaten?
Yeah. So like in a shoot here in the UK, it's required for you to have a lunchtime or to have a break where they supply. Oh, I love going to shoots because they give you free food.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I know.
yeah. They
So,
give you
like,
free food. But obviously, you're always like, it's always in my mind every time I'm at a shoot. It's like, oh, I can't eat too much because I have to be in clothing after this, and I can't look bloated or anything like that. But it's great. They give you free food and everything, which isn't. You get that back in Indo, but I don't think it is very commonplace. You have smoke breaks in Indo.
Well, we had new, like, not really like new models, I guess. We did give them I was just helping, but I saw that they were given food. That was really cool, but they were pretty
Yeah. I've the girl that I told you that worked in China, she said the working conditions were so horrible because she was working like an 8-hour day. Like working as a model is hard. Like you have to work the same amount of time, like 9 to 5, sometimes even more, like 10 hours. And this girl was telling me how she didn't get any water. There was no water. There was no food. So she was just constantly being worked, like in and out of like the camera. Like imagine that. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. How would you want to see like the model industry in the future? Because obviously you're a model and you're studying all of this. What's like your hopes on it?
There needs to be more protection. As I said, like the industry is such a free for all. Everyone takes advantage of everyone. Like there needs to be more regulations. And that regulation needs to be properly reinforced, enforced upon the people in the industry. Because I don't know if you've heard, but there's this rule, like proper law in France. I think France. I don't know if it's the whole France or if it's just Paris, but it's for Paris Fashion Week, and it's because of this one girl that was really, really. It's just because of all the talk about eating disorders and everything. And this one model, her name is Victoire something. She wrote a book as well, but she helped draft this rule, basically saying models need to be over the age of 16 to work in Fashion Week, and you have to have certain BMI, and so they're healthy. And we don't want girls that are like anorexic or like super unhealthy, skinny, and like basically just malnourished. And so this is a proper thing in France where it's a proper rule, but no one cares. No one comes in with their medical like record or like their BMI to accosting. Like people still do whatever whatever they want to do. And it's this, we need to like properly reinforce this rule and like properly make more regulations and reinforce that regulation in the industry. And we shouldn't be more power hungry or money hungry, because that's a lot of the people in the industry.
I was just thinking about actors, like kids actors, a lot of them who are now adults are talking about like there's a conversation right now where they talk about kids shouldn't act long like at all, or like there needs to be better regulation because they get affected so badly like in the future, especially those who are like because some parents, that's their dream and they put it in their kids, so their kids are like, oh crap. So I think that's a very important conversation that gets overlooked all the time.
Yeah, like especially people who model start from a very, very young age. A lot of them start from the age where you're going through puberty and you're very mentally malleable. Your body is also prepubescent, so you're very skinny, very like no boobs, no ass, just skinny, small and tiny. And when you grow older, this idea of like, oh, I was really successful when I was 15, and now I'm 20 and I have these hips, I have these boobs, I grew up, I went through puberty, and now I'm not getting more jobs. So then they start thinking, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that to make myself look like that. And you have girls like 16-year-old. When I was working in Indo, I met this Russian girl, and she was like 60, she was what, like 14, 15, and she's halfway across the world in her own flat, like her own apartment, and like she's supposed to go to school. They don't give her like proper education, they just stuff her in another like an apartment and that's it. Like in a country where she doesn't speak the language, she doesn't know anyone, like that's not good for a growing child.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more conversation, especially with like the creative industry, when your body does change, because even like for voice actors, boys, their voice break. So a lot of boys voice actor get like sidelines after their certain age when their voice break, and I just see the heartbreaking like they can't book more stuff anymore because they were so known for that. Yeah, I think that's the same with models. Like there needs to be more conversation when your body does change, because they do.
Yeah, like you get, I don't know, like I mean these girls, like when they're young as well, like you have agents that are, or like basically your manager, the people who book you jobs will tell you like you need to be skinnier, you need to lose weight, you need to do this, we need you at a very unhealthy weight. Like they won't say unhealthy weight, they'll give you a number, but it will definitely be unhealthy. And like obviously when you're like a kid and you're relying on them for work, you're like, you don't know what else, you don't know what else to do, so you just listen to them and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do that and blah 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 blah. And then when they grow older, eating disorder and they're like,
let's not forget like child models as well, like the ones yeah, but that's a different industry, I think.
I don't know, I wouldn't know about child models obviously, but I do know about like fashion models and starting off at a very young age. Like that is horrible. It sucks because if you're trying to juggle school and modeling, and then you have these like expectations from both sides, or if you're doing sports and modeling and you have expectations from both sides that are very contradicting, like you don't know who to listen. Like you become very conflicted, and you're very conflicted within yourself as well.
Yeah, I think you had that experience, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Great, that's about all the time we have, so thank you so much, Alexa, for coming on.
Yeah, thank
you for having me.
It was a very interesting conversation. Tune in next week for our next episode. Bye.
Hello, hi. Thank you for listening to the Peak Boredom Podcast. This is Mars and Inga signing off, and don't forget to tune in next week. Please. Bye.